Rob Day. I have comments. I'm actually in proxy for that stairs. I'm just going to read.
It's okay with me?
All right, great. My name is Beth Stair. We're at 52 Main Street. You should actively ask and learn how to serve all members of the community. It's great that some residents feel Ridgeville is welcoming and serves their needs. Please put practices in place that can help extend this warm feeling to all members of the community so they too feel served, valued, and can actively participate instead of feeling confronted or ignored. I want Ridgeville to operate within current best state practices in ways that demonstrate fiscal stewardship and respect for Ridgeville taxpayers. Best practice and good governance is founded on the cores and includes a strategic plan that serves your mission with short and long-term goals. I'm encouraged by President Gaines' attempts to work with Ford to establish goals and a mandate for an equity outreach committee. It is disturbing to see Commissioner McCourt's attempts to undercut her efforts in saying that the committees are places where you put things you don't want acted on. Quote. I don't believe Commissioner Gaines is trying to bury the issue. I believe she wants to get community involvement and positive, actionable outcomes. Commissioner McCourt, stop your attempts to obstruct the board. Set constitutional standards of decorum for commissioners and citizens. Conduct meetings efficiently and respectfully. Set reasonable time limits for comments. And she wrote, I will no longer follow Alderman Rainey's precedent. At the June meeting, I didn't want to mention fiscal issues before verifying facts. I did my research and discussed figures related to executive director benefits and privileges. Some commissioners lost their temper and interrupted me. I never attacked the executive director or Commissioner McCourt personally or in a derogatory manner. I have since learned there is a history. Questions were posed by the board a few years back over the EDs or executive director's privileges and outdated board governance. There was a settlement agreement where an advisory withdrew threats of litigation against Ridgeville in exchange for money. Ridgeville chose to buy its peace to avoid additional litigation-related legal fees on taxpayers that would be necessary to respond to the pithy claims. The agreement between the complainant, Mr. Brzezinski, and the respondent, Ridgeville Park District Board, president at the time, Commissioner McCourt, states that in exchange for money, no party is liable and the threats of adversarial charges are withdrawn. Ridgeville has demonstrated a differential impact and practice with respect to equipment, allocation, and facilities access on people of color. It is impact that matters. Stop treating basketball differently. Keep basketball rims in place until the park closes at 9 p.m. Your selected concern over attractive nuisance of basketball rims over other park equipment instructions is off balance and outrageous. Have bathrooms available in Ridgeville, came east and west and portable toilets that are unlocked during park hours. Gather and store demographics data. It's needed. For most grants, to understand your organization, to observe growth and change, to respond to equity questions, to implement equity practice. This is a common practice. Ridgeville vehicles should be used exclusively for Ridgeville business. Set a timeline for the IAPD self-assessments so you can benefit from its guidance in the development of best practice, even without taking a 2-year path of distinguished accreditation. This is to assist, not to embarrass Ridgeville. Request that your executive director earn certification from the Illinois Park and Recreation Association as a certified park and recreation executive. IAPD's focus is on the district and the elected officials, whereas IRPA focuses on the development of park district professionals. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Are there any other citizen comments? Doesn't sound like there are, so we will move to the approval of minutes from the June 19th meeting.
I make a motion to approve the minutes for June 19th.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
I have in
In your book, Beth Stairs made a request to change, you have it right there? Change a few numbers that she mentioned last month. It's this page right here, so it's up to you. Charles, it's up to them.
Yes, so one of the commissioners would have to make a motion to
Can we
change.
see it, Tom?
You don't have it?
I have a question for you about this, because I spoke with you already. It sounds like whether this is factually correct or not, the change she's proposing, depends on whether you look at one number of our budget or another number of our budget.
Right.
And I'm not enough of an expert yet to know exactly what that difference amounts to, but it
Right.
sounds like we need some clarity there
Okay.
before we could say for sure whether she's right about that proposed change or not.
Okay, so she mentioned approximately 19% of Ridgeville's levy ordinance goes to me. That is probably correct, but that's shorthand math. In last budget year, we had, I believe, $877,000 in total income. So then therefore, by her addition and then my division, it's about 15%. But what you have to look at is we're a two-person staff really in programming and leadership, 2.5, 3, 2 maintenance, and we get all this done. So you can do whatever you want with our numbers, but in reality, it's about 15% of our total levy ordinance. No, I'm not sorry, not levy ordinance, appropriation.
Okay, thank you for,
Okay.
I understand what you just said, that a commissioner has to bring that up.
Right.
I have a real, so that takes care of it, but I just want to express, I have never thought that a citizen can amend the minutes. And that's why we're saying the commissioner
Only the commission, only the board
can
can
amend.
amend the minutes. Anybody can suggest to you that the draft minutes are incorrect in some way, and you can consider that, so it's up to the board.
But that comment was what was said.
which comment?
What she wants changed is what was said. And that's what the minutes, am I right? The minutes,
Well, what I understand what he's saying, I don't know, what I understand what he's saying is that she's saying what she said was incorrectly taken down, and she's trying to have that corrected. That's what I understand her
oh,
saying.
I don't,
But she's not here, so I'm not,
Right,
all
so-
I have is this.
Could somebody read what the paper says? I haven't heard it yet.
you just.
Oh, here it is. She's saying, a minor correction to the minutes regarding my comments. So she's talking about her comments. Please request a change to 19.6 to 20.1%. So those are her comments. She simply wanted to clarify through the minutes what she said, which seems
I don't
fair.
take it that way, but, okay.
Well, I mean, that's what, I just read it in
She
English,
said,
what she said.
she's referring to her comments, she commented about this stuff. But I don't take it as that's what she said and didn't say, and she just wants it changed. But, okay.
I have a couple of thoughts I'd like to share. First of all, I'm not quite sure why this even matters in any way, shape, or form, so it seems a little bit silly to spend so much time on it. Second of all, it seems like a slippery slope that if anyone who comes to citizen comment and speaks realizes that they misspoke by their own standards and wants to change what is in the record of what they said at the meeting, that they need to issue change to us in writing, and then we need to talk about it, and then we need to, it's just like she came, she spoke, she said what she said, it's in the minutes. I don't personally think that we should set a precedent of being so particular about 19.6 to 20.1, we're talking about a 0.5% difference that she wants to articulate in the minutes. It's not important to me. Is it important to any other board members?
No, I agree.
I can't read her mind, I'm just stating what's written here. And I would just like to make a motion to accept that small change, because a citizen just wants the record to reflect what she said, that's all. I'm not gonna read anything more
Is
into
there a
it.
second? Okay, so that motion dies. Then we'll go back to where we were, which was approval of minutes from the June 19th, I'm sorry? June 19th meeting. I'm not quite sure if you made a motion, and somebody was in the
I
process of
seconded.
seconding.
I
Okay.
seconded it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of bills,
Okay, you're working too fast for me.
sorry.
All right, here we go. Some of the unusuals. We have a few refunds. Janine Brunel, Kim Butelman, refunds. One's for farmer's market. Lions had a problem, couldn't make the farmer's market, so they couldn't get home delivery, so that's a $23 refund. Kim Butelman's son broke her finger, not here, had surgery. It's a partial refund on soccer and T-ball. Citgo is a little bit larger than normal, but that's because we are cutting nonstop. You should know now that we haven't had rain in about 10 days, we're not cutting as much, so the next gas bill should be a little lower. Tricia Estella is a refund from, she paid for extended care lunch, but she's here all day, so she doesn't have to pay for that. Evanston Lumber, some wood for shelving. Sarah Girardi is a refund. Her daughter didn't enjoy Time Travelers Camp, so gave her the refund. As we go down, Little Tykes Play Power, we bought a seat belt for the spinning machine at Leiter, so a special needs child can sit in it and feel secure. So that'll go in. It's here. It'll go in the next week. Angela Lyonsmith is another refund. National awards, we bought pole banners for Ridge Avenue. Abigail Neal is the same thing, lunch refund. And Playwell Technologies, that's your partner camp Lego. And Service Station is the month of June, the month of June and the month of July porta potty that's out here. That's it.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the bills for July.
I'll make a motion to approve the July bills in the amount of $18,659.60.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of petty cash is next.
Petty cash, City of Evanston, $200. That's for the water permit, which now we're going to use extensively because of the about the 10-day drought. Discount school supply, camp supplies, house of rental, $150 for the Moon Bounce, which will be at Soccer Fest, which is Saturday from 10 to 1 o'clock. SNS Worldwide, second session, camp supplies, Sam Clubs, that's a month of snacks. The copy room, promotional stuff, postcards, what else? Posters, postcards. Walmart camp supplies for session 2, Walgreens, a variety of things for 4th of July races, but mostly the instant water balloons. That's it.
Make a motion to approve the petty cash for $1,555.81. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Monthly reports, so we'll go to Brian first.
Okay, thank you. In the past month, we've had numerous special events and programs. In conjunction with Team Evanston, we have put up a soccer patch or pitch. I keep forgetting what it exactly is, but it's the board that looks like a hockey rink from a distance with netting. It's very nice. It is getting great usage from our soccer program, Team Evanston, our soccer program, Team Evanston, and drop-in use. It will come down the week of July 22nd. The concert on July 2nd at Cayman East was rained out. We were all set up and ready to go. When weather changed about 6 p.m., it poured at 7 p.m., making it impossible to reconnect extension cords and electricity. The concert was in conjunction with the City of Evanston Starlight Concert Series. Races on the 4th of July. I know Matt was there. At Cayman East was a great success. I estimate about 225 people. It was our largest crowd for races, likely due to the fact that there's construction at Robert Crown, so we got some spillover. Session 2 of our camps began on July 1st and will end on July 26th, when we go to 2 weeks of bridge camp and 2 weeks of imaginary game, which better known as cardboard camp. Natalie will further update you on our mini camps. T-ball and soccer will end the week of July 22nd. We'll have our year-ending pizza parties for both groups. We will also have 3-on-3 basketball at Ridgeville Park on the 18th. Food Truck Fest is at Brummel Park on July 16th. The city has secured several food trucks. I hear as many as 9 may show up, and they'll have great music. This is the most well-attended concert of the summer. It's also in conjunction with the City of Evanston Starlight Concert Series. Fantastic event, so if you come on out, come early, ride your bike, because you will not be able to park. Finally, you will pass the tentative budget tonight. We must then pass the appropriation ordinance in September and adopt the levy ordinance in December. A few notes that are not on on my report. Again, I want to repeat, Soccer Fest is Saturday, and we had a wonderful surprise yesterday. Teammate of mine called me out of the blue. Lee Smith, who's going in the Hall of Fame on July 21st in Cooperstown, was at the Fish Bowl in Evanston. I'm assuming he was doing a promotional gig. And he came over to Ridgeville to say hello to everybody, the staff. None of the kids know who he is. And several young adults have no idea. So when I got home, I said to my daughter, who's 25 years old, I said, Lee Smith came by today. She said, who's that? So at any rate, we got pictures. He invited me to Cooperstown. I'm still hemming and hawing on that one, but it was fun for all staff. It was fantastic. We played together 5.5 years.
I think a question, this is a question regarding your report, and I love it, that the report you give. And one question I have is, I'm reading this week that our federal government's going to be invading some of the families in the Chicago area, kidnapping kids and separate them. I'm very proud of Evanston's, sanctuary city approach, and my understanding is that the city government has asked all the city employees not to cooperate with the ICE agents. It never occurred to me to think about this kind of a crisis in our context, and I'm just wondering if we could take some time to at least think about that, or if maybe you have. I'm hoping that our staff would not cooperate with any ICE who came to a summer program or wanted to come investigate some of our constituents in the parks.
I'm all for not cooperating, but Charles, what do you think? Put him in a tough spot.
I don't really think it's an issue. If they want to see files, paperwork, records, they don't have a warrant, you don't have to give it to them. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I will tell you that I hadn't thought this through. I didn't realize this issue was coming. But I think you don't have a warrant, you don't have to give them anything.
And that's my understanding for a lot of agencies that are trying not to cooperate with ICE. And I would just encourage us to communicate that. I think that's really healthy advice.
Question, didn't we keep the pitch up for a little longer than a few weeks last year?
What's that?
Didn't we keep the soccer pitch up for a few weeks longer last year?
Yeah, but they destroyed our grass, and if you go by it now, it's getting destroyed again. The agreement was probably July 25th it's coming down.
So that was our call, not theirs.
That was my call.
Your call.
Yeah. Typically, 3 weeks in, your grass is pretty much torn up. And it's already torn up, and we got 2 more weeks to go. So we're actually watering it tomorrow with fire hose. I have a permit from the city to use the hydrant, and we're going to water as much as we can over there because it's getting destroyed fast.
Is this soccer pitch where the Soccer Fest will be held as well?
It's going to be one of their fields.
Okay. in the future, could we ask if it's possible to move it more frequently? Like instead of the 3 weeks, maybe, I mean, I know it's work to move it, and usually when they move it, it's because they're moving it to the next location,
Right.
but, you know, if,
I don't know where it's going after July 25th, but are you talking about moving it from where it's at to 50 feet in the other direction?
right, I mean, just to literally any other patch of grass that hasn't been seen such high usage.
That's possible. It's.
I don't know how involved the moving
It's
is.
a day.
Okay,
But they're on a schedule, they're going somewhere else right afterwards, basically?
I don't know where it's going,
Okay.
if it's going anywhere, but he told me we'll find a place for it.
I would think for next summer, if the extent to which the grass gets beat up is so bad that we have to do new seed or anything like that and incur costs, that we should maybe look into moving it once in the middle of the time that it's here, but I don't know if that's doable or not. Okay, so, any other questions for Brian from anybody? Okay, at this point, I actually want to make a motion to hear from Dr. Logan, who is here to speak about some diversity consulting that he does. I have to apologize too, because I meant to introduce you earlier. We kind of just started going with the meeting. So this would have been put on the agenda if I had connected with Dr. Logan sooner, but just due to the timing of our connection, the agenda was set. But as everybody knows, I think we've been looking into doing some diversity and equity, work at the Park District. And we hope to hear from a number of other entities, but tonight we're going to hear from Dr. Logan. And so I'm making that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor of going in that direction?
Aye.
Aye. So Dr. Logan, you now have the floor, and you can stand wherever you would like.
You're fine?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll keep it short. I know you all have a lot on your agenda, but thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Dr. Gilo Kwesi Logan. For the last 20 plus years, I've served as a leadership and diversity consultant, coach, writer, and speaker. We work with a number of corporations, law enforcement, nonprofit organizations across the country and literally around the world. Some of our clients have included, from a corporate standpoint, McDonald's Corporation. From a law enforcement standpoint, we worked with the Evanston Police Department for the last 4 years. Nonprofit-wise, we've worked with the Carpenter Foundation. We've also had Lake County government as a recent client, and private educational institutions, District 65, 202, Round Lake College, and Round Lake School District, and a number of others. And myself, from the time I graduated from college with a newly minted degree in business marketing till many decades later now, over that time, essentially I've collected a number of tips, tools, and techniques to help leaders such as yourselves, organizations and teams and individuals to really to develop cultural competencies, to engage with the complexities of our society today. And myself, I grappled with those challenges as well. I too had to develop my own cultural competence, which I'm still in the process of doing. I had to figure out my own identity. I had to develop my own leadership skills and figure out how to navigate these complexities in the world. Part of my expertise stems from, I've been an adjunct professor in the Justice Studies Department at Northeastern Illinois University for about the last 15 years. In addition to that, I'm a member of the Illinois Diversity Council, and I've been certified by the National Diversity Council as a certified diversity practitioner. And I've been very fortunate to work and live in 23 countries around the world, so I bring that to my practice. Some of the topics that we delve into in terms of coaching and consulting involve global leadership development for C-suite executives, keys for mission-driven diversity management, helping steps and strategies for helping organizations develop a culture of racial equity, and a number of other topics. This spring of 2020, I'll be publishing my book titled Cultivating Culturally Competent Leaders, Tips, Tools, and Techniques for Engaging with the Diverse Workforce. And with what we do, I define cultural competence as awareness, the sensitivity, the knowledge, and the skills to engage with the diverse in diverse environments. And when we talk about diversity, typically people think of race, class, and gender, maybe sexual orientation. But diversity is also diversity of age, diversity of geography, learning styles, ability levels, and so on and so forth. So diversity goes well beyond just the notions of race, class, and gender, and sexual orientation. And lastly, I'll say that I am, and don't hold this against me, but I'm a 5th generation Evanstonian. So I was born and raised in the West End in the 2nd Ward. And that is, I say that because that has informed my practice as well. That's part of who I am as a consultant. Evanston has helped to make me who I am and has shaped what I do and how I do it. Having said that, if I had the opportunity to work with you all, I just want to make clear that I would not be coming as an Evanstonian, although I bring that with me. And I use my work with the Evanston Police Department as an example. One of the things that I had to make very clear working with them was that no, I'm not a liaison to the community. I'm not a spokesperson for the community. I'm not a mediator between the community and the police department. That's not my job. So surely being an Evanstonian informs my practice. But again, if I were to work with you all, I just wanted to make that clear. I'm not coming as a community member. I'm coming as a consultant who is from the community and who was raised in the community, and that experience informs my practice. So that's a bit of who I am and what we do. And currently I serve as the president of Local Consulting Services, a consulting firm. So.
Can we ask you some questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Can you give us some examples of the work that you do that you think might apply to us? And I know that you don't necessarily know us that well so far or what's going on here, but given that we're a park district, given that we serve a good chunk of Evanston, that's some right off the bat. And being an Evanstonian, you already know what that means probably to some extent. And my second question is, how do you charge for your services? Do you have a set cost and a set program, or do you work with people on an individual basis and charge hourly, or how does that work?
Okay, great. So, second question. So we don't charge per hour, we charge per, so all of our services are tailored. So hence our pricing structure is tailored as well. And we price based on a value-based approach in terms of the value that we're providing as opposed to how many hours we're working. And when we're contracted, the aim is to provide the service that to meet the needs, however many hours that requires. In terms of what I would suggest, in all honesty, I cannot really suggest anything. And that's because we do not have a prepackaged program. It's not a prepackaged curriculum or anything of that nature. We always involve an assessment in the process. And although I've heard snippets here and there, but I wouldn't want to suggest recommendations for you all based on snippets I've heard in the community. I would want to have an additional conversation so that I can better understand the needs, the concerns, the challenges, the opportunities as you all see them and as you define them, and then that would help inform me to say, okay, here's what I can suggest, here's what I can recommend. In general, though, to your point, with it being a park district and based in the community, I know just from my own experience that a lot of times there's disconnect between the park district and the community. And a lot of times that disconnect could be in terms of perception. It might be the community's perception of the park district. It might be the park district's perception of the community. So hence with that perception, there can be implicit bias. It can just simply be misunderstanding. It can be misinformation. Again, I don't know exactly what that is. But I find that a lot of times the optics are important. I find that a lot of times programming, when there are gaps, programming is not meeting the needs of the community. And too often I find that leaders of any organization or any body many times provide what they think people want as opposed to actually hearing from the people. Like I'm saying, I would want to hear from you all. The group hearing from the community, hearing their own voice, what their needs and what their concerns are, and what the programs that they feel that they want are. I think that's important. So I'm not trying to avoid your question, but I just, based on my practice, I can't sit here and say what I would recommend because I'm just not informed.
I think that's an excellent answer overall, but it leads to another question for me, which is, what do you view as the next step then? How do we meet with you and kind of flesh out more fully where we would go if we were to, seek your professional services?
Sure, I would want to have a conversation. That could be an official meeting, it could be over coffee. If that's with yourself as a board president, if that's as a board as a whole body, I understand you have a equity committee?
A newly formed equity outreach
Okay,
committee,
so
yeah.
perhaps that's the outreach committee, and I would want to sit down and ask a number of questions so I can better understand the concerns and the needs and so I can see the scope from my perspective and as you all paint the picture. And so to me, that would be the next step, is to have a further conversation to delve deeply into what and I want to emphasize not just the issues and the challenges, but also what the opportunities are. Because a lot of times with diversity work, a lot of the emphasis is on the negativity or the perceived negativity, the problems and the issues, and all of those also bring opportunities for change, to do things better, and to make improvements. So I would want to have that conversation, and then from there, I could suggest some things, I could provide a proposal or whatever you all feel you need.
Great. Does anyone else want to ask any questions?
I got a comment. Dr. Logan grew up in Ridgeville Park District. I don't know if he knows it, but he made it by about 3 houses. He grew up on McDaniel and Bradley. I grew up on Lee and McDaniel. Dad was police chief, so we tiptoed when we went by his house. And his older brother was a great athlete at Evanston High School, Billy Logan. Fantastic. Great family.
It's because of these older guys in the neighborhood, I barely became a baseball player, so I couldn't get the bat. That's all I said.
Dr. Logan, if I could, you mentioned that you would want to sit down with the board as a whole and have a conversation, possibly. Because of the law, that would have to be a public meeting. So would that change your thoughts on that?
Well, surely, I mean, I think given, anytime there are challenges to be faced, I think those, well, let me say this, from my understanding, you all are trying to be very transparent in your process. And I think that's important, and I respect that. Also, I look at these situations as political as well. So I would want to hear from you all in terms of how you feel the best approach is, even if we did have a public meeting with the entire board. And I'm not saying that that's what we should do. I'm saying that if you all feel that's best, I would be open to doing that. Even if we did that, I think further conversations would be warranted, perhaps now, as I understand, with the equity committee. And that, to my understanding, would not be a public meeting. And that conversation, I think, would allow us to delve more deeply into the challenges and the opportunities.
Yeah, and I'll just flesh that out a little bit further, which is to say that for a 5-person board, if any more than 2 board members are present at a meeting, it's subject to the Open Meetings Act, which means that we have to make the public know about it on a certain time frame and allow them to come if they want to. It doesn't mean that we're necessarily soliciting them,
Right.
but yes, it does sort of create a different context if people from the community show up. And that obviously, as you said, has pros to it.
Yeah.
And then maybe also there's, it might be called for to have more of a focused meeting with, it's Natalie, our programs director, and myself that are on that equity outreach committee so
Okay.
far. So, I mean, hopefully I can speak for you and say that we'd love to meet with you
Okay.
as part of moving forward, or at least finding out what moving forward would look like more specifically.
Sure. Yeah, I would welcome that opportunity. And I understand the nature of that, and that's why I say, 'cause it's not my job to dictate that for you all, because, and I'm not trying to project this upon you all, but it's political as well. And there's a context beyond my understanding. So if you all, however you all felt that we needed to meet, I would be open to that, and I may suggest additional meetings, perhaps a one-on-one, or in this sense, a two-on-one, for further discussion.
Okay.
Dr. Logan,
Yes.
couple things. One is thank you for your service to our community.
Thank you.
I'm a better person because of the stuff that you do.
Thank you.
Not just in the gym with the kids, but this equity work and this training, especially with the police department, thank you.
I appreciate hearing that.
And I'm a
I do.
District 65 employee, and I also thank you for that. It's made a difference. If anybody in the community wants to get a hold of you for the same reason the
Sure.
equity committee might want to, how would they reach you?
I can give you my card, we have a website, it's loganconsultingservices.com, cell phone, email, but I can pass on my business card or any of those methods, or loganconsultingservices.com. Sure.
Thank you.
Natalie, were you gonna say something?
I just wanted your card so I could,
Absolutely.
so I could reach out to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm sorry, yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Dr. Logan, I just have
Yeah.
one other point is, we're working on a budget for the next calendar year right now, and this equity consulting is gonna be a part of that. I think we are also soliciting other bids, and I appreciate everything you brought to the table tonight, and hopefully look forward to working with you. I guess my question would be more for the board, what does our process look like?
For what, for budgeting?
For budgeting right now, but then also for selecting
Well,
equity.
Dr. Logan's our first presenter, so we have three more?
We received 3 proposals previously, and as a way to follow up on those proposals, I asked them to attend upcoming meetings. Luckily, Dr. Logan was able to attend on such short notice, but nobody else was. I did hear from Tiffany from the YW, and she said she could attend in August. So I think we'll hear from her then. And my sense of the 2 things going on at once, which is that we want to, hopefully as soon as possible, while making, an educated decision, move forward with somebody in this work. At the same time, we're on a certain timeline for our budget. So how I view reconciling those 2 things is that I think we should budget as much as we possibly can for the equity work that we want to do. And then we've done our part to set that money aside. It may be more than we need. It may be less than we need. We will figure that out as we go. We can't budget more than we're able to budget, but we can choose to do the full amount that's not already earmarked for other stuff. And we can talk more about that when we get to our tentative budget that we're actually passing tonight. Does that answer your question, or?
Sure.
I mean, part of the reason that I asked Dr. Logan about what he would charge is because I was trying to get at, like, what is this going to cost us, but I totally understand that that's not a set cost that you can tell us, and because of the nature of communities and everything that's involved, it totally makes sense that this is a tailored approach, and that is probably how it should be. I don't see it working another way. But the companies who do have a set structure, I'm sure they have a reason for why they do it that way, and we're just still so early in our process that we're going to figure that out as we go, I guess.
Sure, that's great. I'm happy we're moving forward. I'd like to keep moving.
I also affirm the idea of having something in the budget, even though we don't know the exact amount, just so that we'll have a ballpark figure that we can talk with any consultant or person that's helping us or agency. So we've got something in the budget we can use, and we can always revise during the year if we have to. We can also use this as a boilerplate maybe to measure next year's to see what we might need, have a better idea next year on what we need.
Right, I mean, because of the, the legal constraints around when we have to pass the budget officially in September, is it? Or
September is the appropriation ordinance.
Okay.
December is the levy ordinance.
Right, but things are pretty finalized by September, and then
They
it's just,
they are finalized.
So, I mean, we have to set the money aside, or else it waits until the following year, which is not the way to do it. So, that's where I'm at with it, at least. And due to Natalie's excellent work in securing that grant, just give you props for that once again. We do have some money to work with, due to some other factors too. So it's all looking good.
Good. If I make 2 quick comments.
Mm-hmm.
So part of our job would be meeting your budget, right? So we work with your budget,
Mm-hmm.
and in doing that, we would provide at least a couple of options, if not, a few more. And my second comment is part of our process, and I think part of what differentiates us from a lot of other consultants is our entire process is collaborative. So as I said, even from the idea of having a pre-packaged program. So as we have those conversations in whatever context, that helps to inform how the program would be developed. So I would have that conversation with whomever. I would draft the proposal. I would provide that to you all for your input, for you to tweak it, for you to change it, to critique it, modify it. So even the proposal is not fixed. So because I would want it to reflect, your values, your language, your definitions, And once we have an agreement of, okay, this is exactly what we need, and this is what we're saying we're gonna do, then we can provide some pricing options. So just the whole process is collaborative, even in terms of what the content is, what the methodology is, but our whole process is collaborative.
Okay. Another thought I had about money is that obviously we're on a yearly budget. If we felt that the work, and it's quite likely that this will be the case, I think, is not going to be completed in its entirety in 1 year, then we have future funds we can work with too, so we can kind of look at it as a long-term strategy and short-term pieces along the way. So then, you know, again, we have the money that we have this year, we will hopefully have more money for it into the future, so.
And I think that would be best because, one workshop, one training it doesn't do it.
Yeah.
And typically the problems are, or the challenges and opportunities are systemic, and that just takes time to really address. So I understand that.
Right. Okay, any other questions or comments from anybody for Dr. Logan? Okay, thank you so much for coming. And it was so great to hear from you, and we have your card. We'll definitely be in touch for some future meetings.
Sounds good, and I'll wait to hear from you all.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you to everyone for the deviation from the agenda for something that was very important to talk about. So we're going to move then to Jerry's report.
Okay. You've got a packet of financial reports. Under notable activity, we're inching along in the progress on getting the banking relationships updated to reflect the change in the composition of the board, but we're still incomplete on the task. We've got some more work to do with Chase Bank that will hopefully get resolved in the next 2 weeks or so. On the monthly reports, these are very preliminary financial reports with the activity through June 30th. The reports are going to go through 4 more sets of revisions before the fiscal year is finalized and closed. One is going to reflect the bills that were paid tonight for activity that occurred in the prior fiscal year. The second will be in August for the same purpose, things that get approved in August that are payments for prior year activity. And the third will be for year-end adjustments and accruals. And then the fourth will be for the actual closing entries that yield the final year-end balances that become the beginning of year balances in the new fiscal year. This process of adjustments and refinements will extend into September, and at that point the outside auditors will be able to begin their work towards the publication and filing of the annual report in December, and I, the treasurer, can begin the process for the year-end financial reporting that gets published and filed with the county in December. Turning to the outstanding items reports, the only thing I'll note there is we've got a number of unapproved items that your passage of the bills tonight should resolve. If any of them still linger after the processing of tonight's motions, they will come up again in August to be written off or take other appropriate action. But they must go to zero in order for us to close out the year if they are unapproved entry. On the appropriations ledger, the only thing I'll say there is emphasizing the general fund. We are very close to going over the budget there. We've got about 4,000 left in available money there, and tonight you approved several thousand, and we've still got payroll figures to account for, but there will be some favorable swings that go our way. There's just too many balls in the air to really give an accurate estimate of what's going to happen, other than to just say, that's the number I'm the most concerned about. Overall, the budget is fine, the district is fine as far as meeting the budget, it's just our general fund portion that is a bit problematic. We'll make every effort to not go over the budget, because I'm not sure what the consequences are of that happening. Statement of revenue and appropriations. Overall, the revenue is over plan by about 6.7%, or about $55,000. That's pretty much in line with the amount that we got for the grants, gifts, and bequests from the Vanderhaven estate. There was about a $25,000 shortfall in tax receipts, and that's offset by program revenue being over plan by about $22,000, plus some of the minor revenue categories, rental, miscellaneous, and interest being over the plan by smaller amounts. On the balance sheet, assets are down roughly $70,000 since May. That's mostly due to our cash balances being used to fund the daily operations of the district because we've got zero tax revenue in the month of June, which is typical. It's a seasonal thing. And our fund balances are down about $78,000 as a result of that. The accounts payable balance has increased $30,000. That's to reflect the partner camps. We've backed that number now out of revenue and moved it into accounts payable, so it will carry over to the next year. And that's when the partner camps will be paid as in the new fiscal year. The cash position that shows on the balance sheet is pretty well set. There's no reason why that should change that I can think of right now. So that number will remain throughout all the revisions that occur. But all the other figures are going to jump around significantly in the next 3 sets of revisions as additional accounts payable entries get made and their impact on prepaids, fund balances, and due to and due from accounts filters through the process. And that's it.
Thank you very much.
Brian, is this assets and the cash balances funding the daily operations part, is that working cash that we were talking about?
Where is working cash?
Working cash is a fund, and I understand what you're trying to get at. Kind of day to day, there's multiple viewpoints to the finances. Day to day, what we've got is what's in our bank accounts. So if you just add up the cash accounts of the checking account, the general checking account, the payroll checking account, the petty cash account, that's what we have ready and available on a daily basis. We also have money in the investment accounts. All of those bank accounts apply to the general fund in the accounting, but then those, in the fund accounting view of things, the general fund owes money to all of the other funds out of those cash assets to handle the debit and credit accounting, the asset liability accounting of the various fund accounts. The working cash fund basically provides that we've got, that was a kind of a one-time thing in the state of Illinois where agencies were allowed to do a special tax one year to raise some extra cash. That just basically kind of guarantees that we always have $200,000 cash or $196,000 cash in the bank accounts after all the other fund accounting is
Like
done.
sort of an emergency backup type thing? Or do we use it?
We never, again, because the fund accounting is kind of an intangible thing, it's an accounting thing more than anything. It's the cash balances in the bank and in the investment accounts that are really what we focus on for the day-to-day.
Okay.
Paying the bills and running things. In the event that we, for some reason, ran all of our cash balances down and all of our funds just zeroed out and we were in desperate straits, accounting-wise, it would look like there's money over in this fund, but the money's in the cash accounts. I mean, it's not really there. Really what would happen if we ever depleted that is we would have to somehow get financing. We'd have to issue bonds, we'd have to go to the voters, vote to raise taxes, we'd have to do something. Prior to this working cash existing, what could happen is you could accounting-wise be in trouble as a district because you looked like in all your funds you had money, but actually at the bank you had used up all your money because of the way timing of tax receipts kick in relative to when you pay bills. So there was a time in the Parks District history where we regularly had to go to the voters to do tax anticipation warrants. And we actually had to issue warrants to raise some extra money to get us through. That's what the creation of the working cash fund was about, was eliminating the regular need to do those tax anticipation warrants. So,
Cash flow cushion.
yeah. It's in one way, it's kind of just an accounting trick to force you to keep some of your cash reserves at the bank available.
Are we allowed to invest that, or does that just sit there?
Well, our monies are, our cash monies in the bank accounts. We do invest all excess funds over the operating needs on a day-to-day basis. And we keep them in short-term, readily accessible safety of principal type instruments. We can't do anything accounting-wise that goes after the working cash balance. That's got to stay at that. We can, I don't know how you do it, but, and we're nowhere close to ever having to do that, but in theory, you could like say, okay, we're going to borrow the money from that fund to fund something, but within the same fiscal year, we must put it back. That can never change from one fiscal year to another. But I can't even envision accounting-wise how you would get to a place where you would do that. I'm sure there's a way, it's just nothing in our ordinary operations ever takes us anywhere near that.
Short-term loan is the only way to do it.
Yeah,
Under a year.
Yeah, we can't, it's kind of a loan to ourselves.
Yeah, got it.
It's kind of like conceptually, we can't build up a big, we built up for some reason because we made a mistake somehow, and we put too much money in the Social Security Fund, and we said, oh, we want to get that money back and use it over the Recreation Fund. We can't do that. The funds are kind of sacrosanct. The money is designated with a specific purpose, and it's the only purpose that money can be used for. It cannot be reassigned to any other fund. The one exception to that is the general fund. We can take the general fund monies and move it into any other fund. But once we move it, we can't bring it back. So for example, our capital fund, our capital projects fund, we can't tax to raise money for capital projects. What we do is we take surplus money, like if we end up this budget year with say $50,000 going back to the recreation fund because we plan to spend it and we had a revenue stream in place to raise the money for it, but we didn't spend it, it adds to the fund balance. We can spend that money next year in recreation, or we can transfer that money over to capital projects and do a capital project with that money. So we can take money out of general and out of recreation, but general we can move it over to capital projects for any capital project. Recreation money, we can only move for a recreational purpose. So we have to be careful how we use the money that we take from the recreation fund and move it.
So in terms of budgeting for equity work, where would you say we put that? It sounds like general fund is
It
the
would
place
sound
for
to
it.
me like the general fund is the only unassigned type of fund. If you look at the balance sheet down at the bottom, you'll see how it disperses the fund balances between the categories of non-spendable. You'll notice the working cash fund is classified as non-spendable. Restricted means it must be used for that purpose. So for example, the IMRF pension money can only be used for pension funds. Assigned is what the recreation fund is considered to be under GASB standards. So it's designated to a purpose, but it's not restricted to that purpose. That's what allows us to move over to the capital fund. And then the only thing we can do with recreation funds is recreation programs. I don't think that type of program qualifies as a recreation activity. So that by default leaves us the only fund to work with is the general fund. Our only stream of revenue generally into the general fund is taxes. So we can't take program revenue and apply it to pay for that type of program. The only thing we can do is tax property in the district to raise the money to do that. Unless we got a special purpose grant that allowed us to put the grant money into the corporate fund, into the grant source that provided that. Most of the time when we're applying for grants or doing grants, we're doing it under the guise of the recreation fund, or this year we did the capital projects fund. The other small minor place that the corporate fund gets its money from is, from a revenue standpoint, is interest income we apply to the general fund. So that's interest we earn on our investments, and we do receive some interest on taxes from the county, a pretty minor amount. We do take a percentage of the replacement tax into there as well, the personal property replacement tax.
questions for Jerry? Thank you. Natalie?
Okay. This month we are celebrating America's independence by reading Rise to Rebellion. You can join us at the Community House for the Ridgeville Readers Book Discussion on July 28th at 3 p.m. I find it's easier just to copy and paste my schedule for you to see what I'm doing rather than talk about it all individually. So this is just a July event reminder. So this is where I'll be and what I'll be doing for the next couple of weeks. Got lots of good things coming up. We had our first concert last night. The Fantasy Band featuring Miss Connie Wilson played. We had a great crowd, even though it was super, super hot. They were awesome. We'll be doing concerts every Wednesday night through August 14th. Our Shakespeare Festival continues with A Midsummer Night's Dream, and that opens July 20th. As Brian said, the Brummel Park Food Truck Fest is on the 16th. Soccer Fest is this weekend. And then there's a ton of other fun stuff. Summer Camp Session 2 is off to a good start. There's not a whole lot to report new from last month. Mini camps are going very well. This week is Science Camp Week, led by Miss J.C. Herman. She's doing a fantastic job. Seems to be going really well. We have a record number of kids in all of the mini camps. Many of them are full to capacity, which is awesome. The additional camps are keeping everybody pretty busy. Staff is doing great. The library's been coming to read to the kids and facilitate the summer reading program. Our older kids have taken a couple walking field trips to the library. And we have a special guest booked for the Creative Arts Camp at the end of this month, possibly two, working on that. So, going well. Purple Line Adventure Playgrounds at Elks Park. We did those pop-ups in June on the Saturdays, and they were awesome. Due to other events and scheduling, I was only able to personally go to the last one. There were so many kids and families, and it was super fun. Yulia and Rick did a really nice job with those. We have a couple more pop-ups planned for Brummel Park and Reba Park coming up in the next 2 months. My biggest takeaway from that, in talking to some of the families that live in that particular part of our district, is that they don't know that we exist. So always knew that was a challenge, but talked about some ways they found out about the pop-ups because of flyers that were put on their door. Yulia did that, and we passed some out as well. It seems that some of the brochures just get kind of dumped in the lobby instead of being put into individual mailboxes. So they were thrilled to find out that we offer summer camps and classes and all kinds of stuff. So passed my card out to quite a few families and invited them here just for a tour, and I can fill them in on things. Something else I suggested to Brian was getting a display board to put down at Elks Park, something that I can put flyers in that families can see as they walk by to help us engage that corner of the district. So. And then a couple quick things that I don't have on here. I just finished the fall winter brochure, so that will be in your mailboxes soon. And then also I did the math on the the non-camp program revenue. So last year my challenge was to bring in $31,000 from the board in non-camp program revenue. Thrilled to report that this past year we got it to $41,000.
Yes.
Wow.
So, yeah, thank you. So that's super exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Question?
Yes.
Not exact, just in general. But for somebody who would like to know approximately how many human beings are on our campus property any given day, and it probably fluctuates, right?
Yeah.
Approximately, how many do you think it might be?
Per park?
No,
Like,
total.
total?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. Well, right.
100, over 100, less than 100?
Oh, well over 100. I mean,
Yeah.
kids alone, we have at least 100, 150 a day.
In the what? In camp?
Just people engaging in the parks.
Oh, if you go by several of the parks in the evening with the soccer going on,
Yeah.
it's different parks, different nights.
Yeah, like on a Tuesday, I mean, we have 35, we have probably 60 kids in the soccer program on a Tuesday and a Thursday night.
Okay.
We have about 100 to 150 kids here every day just for camp alone.
Wonderful.
The basketball courts are always packed and busy. We've got folks here for Shakespeare, and that draws in quite a large crowd. So people are loving that lighter play circuit right now. That always seems to be busy. Little Beans has been taking advantage of that quite a bit too, so.
Someday, if we ever find a statistician that wants to volunteer, it'd be fun to have a chart that kind of shows the number of human beings. Not you, but I mean a volunteer. Somebody's willing to help us out with that, because that'd be a cool thing to advertise. That,
Yeah.
look at all these people that are here in our parks. Second question is, so far this summer, has there ever been dangerous weather where we had to pull people off the park? And how's that work?
We have a very strict rule
Okay.
on thunder and lightning, so, and that is for any event that happens in the park. So that's Shakespeare rehearsal outside, that's a concert, that's camps.
Boosters, whoever.
Everybody.
Yep.
So if there's any thunder, any lightning,
Okay.
we're done. Like Brian mentioned, they had to call the concert the other night at Cayman because there was thunder.
There was no thunder.
There was no thunder.
There was heavy rain. James Park, right
Oh,
down the
that's right.
street, had lots of thunder and lightning. We didn't see it, but it poured at 7 o'clock. So
Yeah, yeah. So, so far I don't know of any. There have been a couple instances this summer. I know that there was one day I was here and all the kids were in here like eating lunch, and I was like, why aren't the kids inside? And JC was like, there was thunder. They had to
Oh,
get
good.
inside. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So see, the kids I was thinking of mostly, they would come in here or the other building?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Natalie,
Yeah.
where are we at with that Sticky Fingers camp? Did you get any more?
No,
No?
I didn't. I actually lost one.
Really?
Yeah, that's the only one that I don't have at capacity yet. So I need I have scheduled, I made 7 emails yesterday and scheduled them all on MailChimp, so you're gonna get an email blast from me every day, but one of them is for that camp specifically. So hopefully we can get a couple more kids in here.
And how weren't there at least 2, if not 3 sessions of that camp?
Yeah.
And did 1 or 2 of them happen already?
One of them happened, and that one was actually at capacity. And then the other one that we have scheduled for the morning that day, so they're doing 2 camps that week. They're doing a morning and an afternoon.
Okay.
The morning is great. That one's all set to go, but the afternoon, I'm having trouble.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll reach out to people.
Tell your friends.
Yes. Because Sarah's looking forward to it.
I
So
I'm sorry.
I really wanted to run.
I know.
Okay. I think we actually do have a monthly report from
Yeah.
Jessica.
All right, this is from Miss Jessica Parr. This is my first summer with Ridgeville, and it has been a very busy one. I feel I am experiencing what makes Ridgeville so special, and I am grateful for that. Our in-office check deposits and mobile processing is now set up and running very smoothly. With so many utilizing our summer programs, extended care, and summer classes, I'm able to process check payments and balance due payments quicker, and I don't have to make multiple trips to the bank in a week. A big thanks to Jerry for facilitating and setting this up. Our payroll service, ADP, has moved our company to a once-a-month billing cycle. They also sent a letter stating that there will be an increase in their cost, and they are moving to a paperless system. I am not sure what that increase will be or how this will affect us utilizing their services in the future, but it is something I will monitor closely going forward. Cambridge Partners and Associates reached out to me last week regarding scanning and indexing Ridgeville's files. Many documents produced by the Park District must be retained for extended periods of time, if not permanently. In harmony with the district's desire to move forward in this digital world, I have set up a meeting with Cambridge Partners and Associates on the 17th of July to discover the cost and process of scanning and indexing Ridgeville's files. Some of the benefits are, it would allow us to access information more easily, better utilize our office space, and improve workflow. This would be a long-term project for the district that can be done in waves. There is much to shuffle through from the past years, and it's not well labeled or organized. Respectfully, Jessica Parr.
Good honor. Yeah.
I'll comment on her ADP segment of the report, if I could. She has, over the course of the last year, made a number of changes in working with them and has also explored whether we ought to be with another service, and has asked for my thoughts on that at various times. And she'll, if she makes, she deals with that in Alston, she's best place to give a recommendation. But I shared with her, and I'll share with you a little of the history of why are we with ADP today. Newer commissioners may not know, my predecessor, I used to work at State National Bank in Evanston. My predecessor was my boss at State National Bank. He was treasurer here for 40-plus years. The bank was in the business of providing payroll services. So for decades, payroll was done by State National Bank. When State National Bank was acquired by NBD, one of the decisions NBD made was to outsource the payroll to ADP. That's how we ended up at ADP. It's not that the Park District ever consciously made the decision to go there. It's just kind of by default through the result of bank mergers, that's where we ended up. There may come a point where there's a more cost-effective or more appropriate way to do payroll than staying with ADP.
So is Jessica meeting alone with them, or do you meet with them? Or
I don't. Well, the Cambridge Partners and Associates is a whole separate issue. I don't know about that, but I just
But in general.
payroll. I just kind of share with you the history because she may have thought on that going down the road and having that as a baseline to work from.
Okay, good to know.
As far as the meeting with the Cambridge Partners and Associates, I think she's set that meeting up for herself with them just to kind of get a feel for what that is. Yeah, she and I use Dropbox. That charge was on petty cash. So we have a lot of files already existing electronically, but like she said, we have rooms and rooms full of stuff. So I think that's what she's gonna find out from them.
When she says that they reached out to her, were they just soliciting business?
Yeah.
Okay. And have we talked to anybody else about doing that same kind of work?
No,
Because, okay.
I think this is just initial. She's
Okay.
just figuring out what it's about.
She'll learn about it, and then we have months of work to go through upstairs and label and organize things. And then you have to go through the state of Illinois before you can shred anything. But obviously, we want to move it in a technology way and get rid of what we can, but it has to be approved by the state of Illinois.
Okay, I'm just kind of getting at the idea that we would have one or two more quotes from companies who do similar work, just so that we know where the price falls.
We're far away from a quote.
Right, okay, it sounds very initial. I'm just kind of putting it out there for the future.
I'll mention that to her.
Okay.
There are companies every year throughout the year that do FOIA requests to get our budget detail, how and where we spend money, and then they approach us offering various services
Clever.
that they want to peddle to us.
Clever.
So I suspect that's how they got our names through one of those.
Yeah.
I think my perception is there's companies that do the FOIA request, get the information, and then they go out and solicit the businesses. So I suspect that's kind of how they got our
Well, we don't really want them basing their quote on seeing our budget ahead of time, because then they're gonna just charge as much as they think they can get out of us kind of thing, or there's the risk for that at least. And so I just feel like all the more reason to get some additional quotes if we decide we're doing that work and, just feel good about spending the money, comparing to what other companies charge.
Because Brian said, because this is, record retention is such a sensitive state law subject, and we've gotten certifications and documents in the past before we destroy the documents, this is potentially a big deal that will require a lot of.
And that element of it, is that something Jessica should be handling, or is that something that somebody else should be making sure that we're just in compliance, or whatever that means?
I don't think, it's fine for her to gather information, I think, but I don't think she's going to be viewed as the deciding authority on
right.
what to do.
Okay,
We're getting rid of
Charles will
nothing.
have an input at some point about it as well.
okay.
Compliance with the law.
I mean, realistically, there's zero in the budget for it, so you're not going to be doing it in the next 12 months.
Right, good point.
So it would happen, if it was going to happen, it would happen the following year, which is, what is it next year?
It's hard to say, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, so that gives us plenty of time to explore all of our digitization options, or whatever it's called. But that sounds like something we definitely should do if we can budget some money for it at some point.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Moving on to old business, discussing the 2019-2020 tentative budget and approving the tentative budget. So, Brian, is there anything that we need to talk about?
Well, we have 3 documents to do equity. And if you were ask me a ballpark number for that, I would say we could based on what we've seen, but again, there's a lot of work yet to be done. $10,000 to $14,000, I think would do it. If you wanted to put that in the budget, or you wanted to wait till August. I've done some math, and we have some money to spend. We can cover that. But we will also have some things that we know are going to increase, because office supplies will increase because we're now being billed on a monthly basis. It's not coming straight out for TYTS, Jerry. The fees, the 2.5% or 2% that come off of every charge. I got a feeling, and it's just a feeling, attorney fees will go up. And then obviously I just mentioned equity outreach, and then payroll expense is going to go up. We know that. So there is some extra money that has not been earmarked in the budget, but I would think the bulk of that money would go to the equity outreach.
Okay. It's my understanding that we don't have anything else, calling out loudly for any of the dollars that we can still budget to things other than the equity work. And then furthermore, as I learned at boot camp, and as I talked to you about, you don't want to tax less than you can because you lose that money exponentially over the years.
Correct.
So I would argue that whatever it is that we can add, we put it in the realm of equity work, and that goes into the general fund, so that if we are needing to move things around, you're saying, Jerry, that we can move from the general fund.
That's if
But
we
can't
need to
move back.
spend prior year money.
Okay.
We're starting with the new tax year. Let me make a couple comments here. Although we're going to pass the ordinance in September, you recall a couple months ago I said, this is like the concrete's wet, but it's going to set quickly. We're to the point the concrete is about dry. Because we can't wait to December to change we can't wait until September to change these numbers, because the proposal has to be out for public review 30 days before that. So what you approve tonight is pretty much the set of numbers, subject to just minor tweaking next month, and really minor tweaking in the final run up to the vote in September. That said, there's numbers that Brian has proposed here based on his review of what he needs to run the district day to day, and then processing whatever input he's received from you all up to this point. One of the things he's done is he's drafted out an Exhibit A, and I said, last time I don't want to focus too much on the Exhibit A, but tonight I'm going to go to Exhibit A just to make this observation. Exhibit A is the last page of the budget. If you look to the lower right-hand corner, and again, this is an example where Brian and I haven't rehearsed this, so Brian, feel free to jump in with comments here. I just did a real quick literal back of the envelope calculation. It says our tax levy, as he's kind of balanced it out here with this proposed budget walking in the door tonight, is going to be about $641,000. Last year, looking at our statement of revenue appropriations, our budget was going to be taxes of $670,000. That's got the 3% added in from the county. I should have backed that off. Hold on.
And where are you finding that last year number? It's not on Exhibit A, is it?
Just because I don't have a copy of the ordinance in front of me, I was trying to find it somewhere, and so the budget amount is on the statement of revenue appropriations. The all funds total, upper left corner of it is $670,427. If I take 97% of it, that's $650,000. And then we'll probably be able to increase taxes about so. Basically, he's got a proposal here that is going to use a levy of $641,000, but a real rough guesstimate on my part right now would be we would probably be able to do a levy ordinance as high as $665,000. So we've probably got another $25,000 available from just tax revenue that you could assign the projects.
My math came to $664,430.
There you go. I'm just within a few hundred of you.
He did his on the back of an envelope.
So at any rate, $664,430 minus my tentative budget and Exhibit A tax levy of $641,300, I get $23,130 to add. And again, equity is going to be a big part of that. And then there's a few categories I already mentioned that I know are going to go up.
And initially, Brian, you were recommending around 14, 15,000?
10 to 14.
14?
I'll leave that up to you guys, but I know.
That's your,
I know.
He said 10 to 14. Is
oh, 10 to 14.
Yeah, looking at the three proposals, you start looking at numbers and you can kind of guesstimate. One is a solid 12, and the other two are hourly and that kind of thing. I think one is, I mean, there's two ways to look at it. It's needed. I think it would be a great investment. And if we don't have enough money, like Martha said, you got part two in the budget year, that's right around the corner. Next year to finish.
Is it possible to wait till next month? We could have the Y coming next month, or we get an estimate from them? I mean, it just as Martha said a minute ago, once you put it in the budget, that's pretty much what you're gonna end up paying.
On my end, all I do is add that number to the category. Jerry tells me where to put it, and then Exhibit A changes. It's simple. Yeah.
So, I know you said, okay, you're saying, cement Brian personally, but
I can't hear you, Commissioner, sorry.
Shakespeare.
Oh,
They're finishing their rehearsal.
good actor.
I kind of look to Charlie and say, how much can the budget vary in that? How rough, is.
I think we're okay.
Okay. He said he thinks we'd be okay.
if we did it in, August. I mean, not saying we can't do it today, but it's just, it's one.
I was thinking about the tree that came down that we didn't predict because how can you, and how that cost $4,000, yeah? Isn't that what you said that one took?
And then concrete work after that.
Right, and so I'm just thinking about the fact that, we do want to tax as fully as we can with that multiplication of, and so but I wasn't arguing that we should budget as much as is currently unbudgeted for equity work and then just foregone conclusion spend every dollar that way. I feel like we should, do our best to make sure that what we're getting in the realm of equity work is what we need, and that we've, done our job to find out what the different prices are and what you get for those, instead of just here, come and do the work or help us do the work and we'll just plunk that money down. Because I feel like when it's in the general fund, you can move money around within any fund, correct, Jerry? You can't move it easily from fund to fund, but
Wait a minute,
within.
if it goes on the corporate side, it's stuck on the corporate side, correct?
Well, it's stuck wherever it's put, but I thought you said that.
But between line items within a fund.
Right.
We can move that
So
money in the course of a year.
let's say we had a problem on the recreation side.
Right.
That money is locked in on the corporate side. We can't touch it.
Okay, well, I mean, so there's,
Usually where we are short is on the corporate side.
right. Well, I mean, and Jerry, you said that there is
Part of the reason for that is because it has no other revenue. See, recreation, you've always got your program revenue.
money coming in.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Thank you.
when we run over budget, it's kind of like, oh, well, on the revenue, we're in a real comfy space there.
And it sounds like we're at a record revenue generating place. So again, props to Natalie for that. Not only did you hit your own goal that you were talking about with the goals of the board, but you're at record levels. Yes.
You're also at a record of use of Advil and Tylenol. But so, I'll just throw this out. The four categories I said that I know will go up are all on the corporate side. So that's good. That's good. Payroll expense, equity outreach, I'm assuming it'll go on the corporate side. Attorney fees might go up, and CA6 office supplies will go up, or office expense will go up. So if you put my estimate, $23,130, you should put it all on the corporate side. and then you can rearrange it later.
Right, and as I said earlier, it doesn't feel like we have some park, for instance, that's in horrible shape and needs to be on this coming
Well,
budget.
we have
Or if
plenty-
we do, then this is the time to figure out if some of the, 24,000 or whatever number you guys came up with goes to that, or whether we, set it aside just for equity work, or, you've already done your best pass at all of this and, budgeted all of the small line items.
So let's just throw this out there. If you put 23,000 into equity and you only spent 10,
Yeah,
the other 13 could be spent on the corporate side, correct?
elsewhere on the corporate.
We can assign where we're gonna spend the money anywhere. Just figure out which funds you wanna spend money in, put them in up to the levy maximum.
Which would be corporate.
Yeah, which is fine. It's just, later, you can't change your mind and say, oh, well, now I want to reduce the corporate and raise the recreation after the budget's passed, because that you can't do. Once we pass the budget, it's locked in. That is your plan. You have to spend to that plan. And what's odd about it, it's just the way government agencies work. It doesn't matter what happens on the revenue side. If you run way over budget on revenue, it's not like, oh, well, gosh, we brought in all this revenue, now let's spend it this year. No, your spending plan didn't allow for that. So you can bank it and include it in next year's budget, and your budget can spend beyond what you can tax. The effect of when you spend beyond what you can tax or bring in program revenue for is you're going to reduce your fund balance. Do you want to reduce your fund balance? Sometimes there's a legitimate reason to do that. If you're doing, for example, a one-off capital project, that might be a legitimate reason. And it's kind of a one-year event. If the reason you want to deplete your fund balance is because you're going to add to staff and expand some function that you're doing, and you created an ongoing expense, you're creating a hole for yourself in future years because you have no revenue source to pay for that, and you're going to every year be depleting your balance.
Right.
How do you ever get your balance replenished again? So an ongoing operating expense is not generally a good reason to deplete your fund balances. One-off events can be legitimate. If last year your fund balances went down for whatever reason, it wouldn't be a good year to deplete your balances. But if you turned back a lot of money last year and increased your fund balances, then I would say there's a legitimate argument to spend that money this year on a one-off type of project, but not an ongoing operating type of project.
So I'm hearing, Brian, you're asking for maybe that 23,000 to go in corporate, and then we can play with it as we need.
Correct. Actually, I would suggest 23,500 in a corporate.
Let me make one more comment about fund balances. And what I was quick looking through notes that I typically carry to every meeting, and I've apparently taken a set of notes out of here that I used to bring in because I intended when the new commissioners were on to have a discussion. And so I'll try and do this little tutorial next week, but I'll give a quick intro to it now. I think it's the Civic Federation of Chicago has published documents and articles in the past about good governance. One of the things that they've got a document that talks about is, how much should your fund balances be? For the newer commissioners, understand we periodically, pretty much every year or every other year, we get sued as a park district by groups that just blanket file lawsuits against hundreds of agencies. And Charlie's always able to get us out of those lawsuits without any loss. The nature of the lawsuit is saying that we are overtaxing our taxpayers in the district. If our fund balances are too high relative to our spending levels, then those people would prevail in those lawsuits and Charlie wouldn't be able to get us out and we'd have a problem. If our fund balances are too low, we could be having operating problems where we're having to tap into and borrow our fund. We operate in a fairly comfortable range right now. We've always been fiscally very prudent and conservative. And we've had times where our balances are lower than they are now. We've had times when they're higher than they are now. It's because of that sound management of the fund balances over the years where we're right where we want to be, fund balance wise. Very comfortable. We probably in the last few years been building up a bit of a cushion, and for appropriate projects, it could be sensible to reduce the cushion a little bit. We're not in the danger zone where it's flashing yellow, saying, gee, those fund balances are getting too high, we're gonna lose a lawsuit. But, you know, that day could come if we didn't periodically spend the money on some projects.
So let's add 23.5 to equity, and then the new levy would be 664,800.
You know, I don't agree with that. I mean, I think we need to look at all of the categories before we lump sum one amount of money in one fund,
I fully assume the 23,500 will get split up between payroll, attorney fees, and payroll expenses.
Right, and
That's what I heard it say.
well, but that's what I'm understanding is that if we were to budget however much we budget for equity, you know, correct me, anyone, if I'm wrong on this, it doesn't mean we have to spend it because we don't even know what the cost is yet. So we're not actually saying we're gonna spend that. Number two, within the general fund, as needed, and it sounds like there's 4 as needed that we're anticipating at least, and then potentially more.
And I think there's potentially in the recreation fund too, so until we go through line by
Yeah,
line.
well, that's actually was one of my questions too, is if we can't move funds from, you know, a general to recreation or vice versa,
You
does it
can
make
before
sense?
September.
Right.
Well, right, but does it make sense to split up this 23, whatever this number is, at least to some extent between the funds now, so that we're spreading out our other money we can spend instead of
Between-
putting it all in one place?
Between funds or line items?
Yeah, between funds, because we can move it between line items as needed, right? Even after the budget is passed.
Right.
But we can't move it from fund to fund. So, I mean, I don't know if that's what you were advocating for too, but I'm a little uncomfortable with the entirety of the unbudgeted money just getting plunked into one fund only.
Yeah.
But you did say that the general fund is the one that's more likely to have things go up.
Corporate.
May I suggest what we do is
General is corporate, yes?
propose
Okay.
increasing the general fund proposed budget by $20,000 from 319 to 339.3, and increasing the recreation from 440,000 to 445,000.
Okay.
700, just 5,000 to recreation, 20,000 to corporate.
And we're gonna wait till later, till August to.
We'll identify the line items there. Or we could designate them, well, the 5,000, I don't know how we can probably pretty well designate all the line items too tonight, I'm guessing. Because I'm guessing we could say, just for sake of discussion, 14,000 for the equity programs. And then put a couple thousand into attorney fees. And what was the other category you said needed to change on corporate?
Office supplies.
There were 4 of them.
Oh, office supplies probably needs 1,000.
CA6.
Yeah, CA6, let's say 1,500 to there, to CA6.
Did we expect more gas? I'm having trouble comparing last year and this year.
Gas.
Did we do an additional gas budget for this coming year, considering that?
We raised fuel. I could tell you exactly what we raised. We raised attorney fees from 8 to 10. We raised paving from 500 to 2,500. Website from very little to 10, and then from 10 to 11. Office furniture from 2 to 3. Building improvements from 22 to 23. We did not, according to my notes here, we did not increase fuel for vehicles, but let me take a quick peek.
We've only used 6,500 out of a $10,000 budget on fuel, but there is I think about $1,000 addition to that in this month in the bills report tonight. What was the Citgo bill?
660 something, 650 something.
A portion of that was this year, a portion of that.
We're going to turn back 2,500.
But as of July 1, the next went up 20 cents a gallon, so.
Right, that's a good point.
So we haven't seen any of that increase yet.
Isn't it always higher in the
So we're
summer
gonna
though,
be-
and it goes down
Well,
a
I
little
mean,
bit?
there's a new tax.
There's a new gas tax.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
20 cents.
Right.
So that's a big jump, and again, I'm trying to find that, we haven't put that in the budget for next year,
No.
basically. So I think we need to do that. So it just, I would feel better, going through each of these columns as we do. you know, and see where we're short.
Well, we're gonna do that anyway,
Okay.
but I just, to pass a number
Something.
tonight, to quick throw some out, some.
Remember, we have the Jerry meeting where we go through last year's year-ending numbers.
So really what we're doing is we're just adding 20,000 in the corporate and then 5,000 so we can play around and then define this.
Correct.
Correct.
Why does that yearly Jerry meeting happen after we pass a tentative budget? Shouldn't it happen before?
No, because year-ending numbers is what we need.
Oh, we don't have them yet,
Don't
okay.
have
Until after you vote on the bills in August, I can't do the final accounting to do the line. by line.
Okay, so it sounds very reasonable then that there would be some changes that happen after this.
Oh, yeah.
And given that we can and that it's reasonable, I don't think we need to do
We
too
already-
much at this time.
We do minor things, but I think it's important we get the big chunk in the numbers you're
Uh-huh.
approving tonight.
Yeah,
President, what I heard is the big thing for tonight to do is the 20 and the 5.
Yes.
right, which
Yeah.
so do we need a motion on that?
Yeah, we-
Alec? Yeah,
Well, you're gonna
Yes.
have a motion to approve the
The whole
budget. But what are
tentative
you
budget.
approving? You're gonna approve the adjusted numbers.
okay. So are we done with that adjustment that you proposed?
So I'll make a motion that would.
Which was what again? Can you say what those numbers were?
So it would be to approve the general fund budget at 339,300, the recreation fund budget at 445,700, and the capital projects budget of 10,000.
So moved.
I'll make a motion to,
I
So-
just moved it.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So that new levy is, that new Exhibit A
It's gonna go up 25,000 in the
will
bottom,
go up 25.
which once you plug in these other numbers, the spreadsheet should just automatically filter it
Right.
out, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
666, 300 is what I come up with.
Yep.
Okay, so that constituted approving the tentative budget. On the agenda, it says personnel policy update, and in parentheses, it says August. So does that
Right.
mean that we're just
We
pushing
got
that?
nothing, it just stays on
Okay,
there. Yeah.
okay. And then there's also, the next item is discuss collection of demographic information. There's nobody's name after that. Is that something, do you know who's commenting
That
on
was
that?
something we discussed last month, and I thought it was to stay on the budget, or stay on the agenda till committee comes back with some information.
Okay, so you're looking at collection of demographic information as part of what our newly formed Equity Outreach Committee was?
Correct.
Okay. All right, well, I think that unless anybody has anything particular to say about C of old business, that's just gonna be part of future work. Yeah. So, discuss equity-based outreach committee. I was speaking to a woman named Sereni, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, and she works with Dr. Logan. And when I was telling her about the committee that we newly formed, we both were discussing the fact that the committee itself should be informed by experts in the field of equity work, and so even though the committee has been formed and that's a good initial step, I feel like the equity work that we're going to be doing will help us figure out the best way to reach out to the community. We talked about maybe an application process. I know the city works with their committees by, mayor appointing. We don't have to do it the way that they do it, but that's kind of TBD at this point, and I feel some pressure to make some decisions and have movement forward, and that's valid. But there's also, certainly, I think, a valid argument for talking more with Dr. Logan, talking more with Tiffany from the YW, et cetera, and finding out, how best to move forward in these ways from other voices, not just the 5, white voices that are on this board. So that's where I'm at with it. Like I said, I do want to move forward. I want to do it in the right way. I want to do it after hearing from people that, can help us do these things in the most equitable, inclusive way that considers everybody that we're trying to reach in the first place. So, a motion for what? I don't know if we need a motion to keep it on the agenda. I think some of these things
just keeps rolling up.
Yeah, you guys tell me, because when we talked about how that was not something I was going to be discussing, the demographics collection in particular, it didn't sound like anyone had their name associated with that, so.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was trying to get the air on when you got
Oh, yeah,
talking
yeah.
about it. Is it okay if I ask right now?
Yeah.
Because I'm putting registration forms together now for fall registration,
Mm-hmm.
I'm operating under the assumption that it is okay with all of you that I put that question, it's a voluntary question on our registration forms moving forward, about like racial demographics.
I don't have any opposition to it. It definitely needs to say that it's optional.
Yeah.
I think we've already established that. In the realm of looking at all kinds of different, diversity, as Dr. Logan was saying, are we really just asking about race, or do we want to ask about income levels, ages, all these other, disabilities, sexual orientation? If we really want to be collecting data, and if this is one of the ways that we want to collect data, I think we should talk about what data are we collecting and why. Is there data that we don't feel the need to collect and why? Certainly, as we've already established in numerous ways at numerous points in time, race is something that we do want to know about. What else do we want to know about? Now's the time maybe to add this to registration forms in the form of additional questions. It could be an entire section of optional identification, or a blurb also saying, we are collecting demographic data so that we best know who participates in our programming. Please, feel that it's optional to answer these types of questions. I don't know. I'm just thinking more broadly,
If I could quickly ask a question, is any information currently collected, for instance, on disabilities for children in camp?
No, the registration form, I asked for address, do you live in district, because that tells you what the price is of your class.
Special needs
Context.
consideration.
Yeah, camp stuff does ask for special needs consideration, so usually people use that for allergies, other things we need to know about that, but nothing, no specific demographic information exists on the registration as it is.
So I think easy ones to add would be self-identified gender, age, race, and special needs is already, is that a question?
No. Only on like camp registration forms, when the kids are with us for long periods of time, and we need to know special circumstances like that, if they have EpiPens, if they take medication for something, if they have a special need, family situations, that kind of stuff, but there's not.
Would it be difficult for you if there was a special needs data collection?
No. I mean, do you want me to leave that open-ended so that people can fill that in for themselves, or do you want me to have it listed? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
One idea that comes to mind for me is if you're open to contacting District 65 office, they've got decades experience in this, and I'm sure they would share whatever they use for the elementary school kids coming in. It might be something similar. You could tweak it to make it fit for our classes.
I think that's a great idea.
okay.
I also think, we don't have to have answers to all of these questions right now, but I'm just kind of trying to brainstorm about where we go with this data, if we were to know that 13% of kids who participate in our programs identified when they registered as special needs, we might say, well, first of all, we have that number, whereas we didn't before, so that's a first step. The second step might be, is that higher than we thought it was? If so, do we need to consider how our programming might better meet the needs of those kids? Just questions like that, If we're gonna ask these identification type questions, I just want to put a little bit of thought towards why are we asking, where is this going to go? And I would think we already asked age, wouldn't we? Because of participation
For kids.
Okay,
Not
and
for
so
adults.
that's another delineation that I think we should figure out.
For adults, I ask if they're over 60, because then they get a discount. But beyond that, I don't ask specific age.
And gender, are we asking that for kids and adults? Is that where we're at?
Y'all tell me what you want me to put on there. I have to open up registration on July 22nd, so whatever you want me to put on there, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
Let me just suggest that this is something that your equity committee whatever information you're seeking really needs to be determined by the equity committee.
Right.
Because that's going to determine the direction you want to go in.
Right.
And so you need to be careful. I understand you want to do something now.
Right.
Because it's opening up. But you need to be careful not to overwhelm what you're doing now, produce a lot of information that's not going to be useful for your equity committee.
Right.
So you may want to consider narrowly targeting a specific area to start collecting information that'll be useful, recognizing that in the future you may change that to add more categories or seek more information. Just a suggestion.
No, I agree. I mean, I feel like the discussion is really in initial stages and that it's not all going to get figured out tonight. I understand your pressure to, want to know from us what we feel about it. I don't think it's the end of the world. I'm not necessarily advocating for this, that we would wait to put anything different on our registration form. So that's one option. Another option is, ask in an optional way about race only and leave it at that and kind of see where that goes. Also, as Dan said, looking at what District 65 asks and using that as a starting point for, okay, what would we want to do of this too versus what do we want to leave out? And so you said July 22nd is what, like a printing deadline or?
No, that's when I open the registration forms up online for people to sign up for fall programs.
Okay, so 11 days from now. I mean, do you feel it's reasonable to look at what Dan mentioned with District 65 and?
They could give it to you tomorrow.
I mean, and because we won't be meeting as a board between now and then, do we feel comfortable to let Natalie use her judgment about what she adds to the registration form?
I think that's fine. If I can get that, I'll reach out tomorrow. And that's for the registration form. I also always send a survey to the community in the fall, and that's how programs are developed based on the feedback that I get from those surveys. So that's another good opportunity to add some of those more in-depth demographic questions, I think, that would probably be useful information.
And what would be a deadline for that survey, now that you mention it, in terms of any changes or additions we want to have you put on there?
I usually send it out in like September, but I can send it out at any time. It will be the information that I collect from that I will implement when I start putting together the spring and summer brochure.
And do you target the people who participated in our programming specifically, which obviously would make sense, or do you want to be able to reach just as many people who would potentially participate as possible?
I send it to everybody. So I send it specifically to people who have utilized our programming. I send a general email blast to our entire email community. I also post it on social media, so I try to reach as many pockets of the district as I can.
Can you tell us how many people have responded in the past? Because maybe we could set a new goal for, how we want to reach more people this time.
I think the most I've ever had respond to that is maybe 80 or 90.
Do we want to maybe create an incentive for people to participate and say that they could earn a $50 credit towards programming?
No, giveaway.
No? Well, something. I'm just saying, like, not that everyone would get it. Like a chance to win. A chance to win. Participate for a chance to win a $50 program credit or something. Yeah. And then you're just not, you're not giving anything away except to one winner, and we can figure out how we decide who wins. Mm-hmm. But I'm just thinking, give them a reason to create,
5 sampler cards.
But sure, whatever. I'm talking an incentive. We can decide what it is. Yeah, did you want to?
The 1,000 kids that I work with Monday through Friday are in our district. That's just one little slice of the schools in our district. If you want to reach out to anyone in our District 65, like a social workers, for instance, maybe we could collaborate with you and get some of that data
That'd be great.
of the kids. Or we might even be able to just share the data that we have of the families that live in our district that we know of. It's not everybody, but that could be 4,000.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something like that, and collaborating if you want.
Yeah.
We might be able to give you that data, not with the names, but just general data.
Yeah, that would be great. That's also a useful tool for me in terms of like sharing the link to get a survey, right?
Right.
Cool.
Okay, so then we resolved that we would let Natalie decide what she's adding in terms of demographic collection to the, and if you wouldn't mind letting us know what you end up deciding to do based on the District 65 stuff. And I don't know if you want to reach out to 202 just for another example, if you feel like you want it. I don't mean to put more on your plate unnecessarily.
It's okay.
Okay, so that was demographic collection. Does anybody have anything to ask or to say about that, beyond that? No, okay. Well, that was actually part of Equity-Based Outreach Committee, and, okay, sorry, this says discuss Equity-Based Outreach Committee and discuss update on equity outreach proposals. Okay, that is different. So, well, yeah, so.
Before we move on, could I encourage the committee, as it's currently formed, to meet with Dr. Logan?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, we didn't schedule it, but I'm planning to do that.
Cool.
And we'll email him.
Yeah. And I want to open this up, actually. You all saw my email, hopefully, about how I was asking the people who already submitted proposals to come to a meeting, whatever works for them. First of all, do you agree that that's a transparent way to engage with them? At our public meeting, we're all present as board members. Whoever wants to come from the community is also here. They're filmed. I feel like that's about as transparent as we can make this part of the process. And in terms of Open Meetings Act compliant, we're already doing that in the context of our board meetings. So hopefully everyone agrees that that's a good way to move forward. And then, further, as we will plan to meet with Dr. Logan, I think it makes sense to schedule meetings with those other entities, assuming their proposals are still on the table as proposed. You and I would talk to each of them in committee as well. Does that seem redundant that we have them present at the board meeting and that the committee meets with them? And then we're kind of moving towards deciding which one we go with at that point. That would be the goal.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where I'm at in terms of an update on the equity outreach proposals and the committee.
There were a few questions. I'm just waiting for a pause to answer. You had some questions. Is it okay to answer?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all right. Couple of thoughts. One is very much affirm your outreach on proposals. I thought that's a great idea. I would caution us to think about, maybe you already had, on our open meetings law, I thought that we had to be careful about how we as commissioners, email each other. Like if we had a serial email saying one, that's the same thing as saying it to everybody, so we're kind of breaking the open meetings law, versus if you want to send it out or let us all know what's being sent out, just send it to the staff and then they can send it to us. See the subtle difference?
So I'm not allowed to forward in the same email to...
Well, I'm asking.
If you do two, that's three, correct?
Yeah, you should not do that. And if you have done that, we should take that email and attach it to the minutes somewhere.
Okay.
So that people know that it went out there.
And it's good email. But
That's what I was trying to confirm with you by text.
I misunderstood what you
Okay.
said.
You could do is you could ask the staff to send an email.
I thought that if there's exchange between an individual with another individual, that does not violate. But if I send the exact same email separately, that's a problem?
Yeah, I think you're...
Too gray
you're
area,
splitting
or-
hairs there.
Okay.
So basically, you take the same email and sending it separately instead of putting it in one document.
Well, for the purpose of if there's responses back, they come only to me. That's part of why I thought that was
Your communication
okay.
is actually going out to multiple members. You have the same communication going out. So you're splitting too fine a hair there.
Okay.
So their response that came back only to you would be fine.
Uh-huh.
It's your response that goes out serially.
Right. What about the fact that my email was to the people who gave the proposals, and all I did was forward? I didn't give any additional communication whatsoever. I forwarded an email to the entities who submitted proposals.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think technically that's a problem. I don't think anybody would ever get too upset about it.
Yeah.
I think in the future, just give it to Brian and Natalie and say, this is a proposal that came in. You probably want to send that out to everybody.
Okay, well, I will get you guys already have the text of so what should we do? Attach it to the meeting minutes for this meeting?
Yeah, you can do that.
Let's just be safe and do that,
Yeah.
because it's certainly not anything that the public can't see anyway, so.
I mean, if we're just talking about, I got this in the email and you sent it out to everybody, I'm not that concerned about that.
Uh-huh.
But you want to be safe, you catch it.
Okay.
So that's two things. One is I love the email and the outreach. I thought it was perfect and spot on. I just wanted to let you know that that was my first caution, like, well, maybe we should let the staff do it, just send it out, that's all. But I love the email and the outreach. The third thing I just wanted to say was for us to think about, as I thought about this month, the outreach name, I was thinking about the in-reach part of equity, which is the internal work that we all need to do, and it's a lifetime journey, and I think that's part of our training. We'll learn how to do that. But I'm hoping that part of the committee's mission will be to hear that or think about that, not just outreach, but how do we look at our own white privilege? How do we look at our own culture? How do we look at the culture? How do we, internally change and grow in a equity way? So there's an element of that that's it's tough work, but it's good, and I affirm that. But I just want to clarify that I'm hoping that those two things can happen, not just outreach, but some inward stuff too.
Yeah.
Through the work.
Yeah, I'm glad you named it, because to me that's implicit. That's just part of the process for sure. But certainly we can, get that out there in words too. But I'm already there. I don't want to speak for anybody else, but to me that's part of the process for
Thanks.
sure. Did you have anything else you wanted to? Okay. Okay, so discuss the IAPD Distinguished Accreditation Assessment, the self-assessment. As we discussed last month, Matt was suggesting and asking that we ask staff to complete the 80-page self-assessment that is an initial step for anyone choosing to proceed with the accreditation process. And I don't, it says discuss on the agenda. I don't really feel like I have too much more to say than I did last month, but I'll summarize it. I think we should do it. I think we should allow staff, Natalie and Brian namely, to inform us as to what is a reasonable timeline to integrate that into the work you're already doing. We know that summer is busy, for instance, so we can I'll be specific here. So in terms of, making a motion, I would move that we ask staff to complete the self-assessment by November, end of November, such that you would have it, to present at the December meeting.
Are you saying answer yes, no, or?
Yes, just yes, no, absolutely. And, yes.
And not applicable?
And what?
Not applicable. Some things just don't apply.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that will help make a more clear answer. Yeah, yes, no, or NA. Help me remember, Matt, there was another condition, I guess just the timeline. The fact that it's yes, no, and the timeline being whatever you feel is ample time to give those yes, no, NA answers to those 80 pages.
I'm a little confused.
Yeah.
I thought that at the last meeting we talked about not even discussing this, or making a motion or anything until the August meeting when the summer stuff was gone and we saw how things were coming. Is that not how you guys understood it?
I think that was certainly the sentiments of some people, and I think that is, sort of what we resolved. I don't feel like anything was official, but we didn't take any action, that's for sure, at last meeting. And since then, I've talked to Natalie, I've talked to Matt, and this is where I'm at with it. I think that if we leave it until the fall to even bring it up again as something that we're pursuing, it pushes it too far into the future in a way that we feel is unnecessary. Do you agree with that much, Matt?
Sure.
So are we going to do the actual assessment that they sent, because that's what?
It's an 80-page document, it's questions, and the way that it's designed is actually that you would provide documentation. No, they're not going to do that part. It is literally just a yes or no or NA answer that we're asking for. And, the reason that I sort of had a question mark at the end of my November, suggestion is, do we feel that's reasonable? Do we want to push that further? Do we want to have it be December, January, you tell me. The summary here from me, and I believe I'm speaking for Matt too as well, is that we do want you to complete this. We want it to be done in a way that you feel is reasonable time-wise, and absolutely that it's just yes, no, NA answers. And that we would hope to gain some understanding of where we are as a park district in those ways that they ask us at the end of the 80 pages.
Let's say December board meeting.
December board meeting is when it will be completed by? You feel comfortable?
Yes, no, not applicable.
Yes, yes, okay. So, again, I'm
And
moving
maybe,
that we...
I'll
that we-
second that.
Okay, I have a second. All in favor?
What's the motion?
The motion is that we're asking staff to complete the 80-page IAPD self-assessment in a yes, no, NA capacity in terms of their answers to be completed by the December 2019 board meeting date.
That's what I was saying.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Okay, so that motion passes.
What was the vote? I didn't,
3 to 2?
3 to 2, okay.
And then we have a discussion here? Or that was before the vote?
I think normally it would happen before the vote. I'm okay with it.
That's all right.
As president, I'm happy to allow.
Sorry.
No? Okay. So next is discussing the timing for citizen comments and the ordinance therein.
Sure, so we brought this up last month, and citizen comments are some of the most important things that we get, because this is democracy. It's very important that the citizens have an opportunity to address the board, so you can hear what their concerns are and guide yourself accordingly. You may agree, you may not, but you need to know what their concerns are. But occasionally, over the last few years, there's been an occasional board meeting where, because of the number of citizens who came and made comments, it's adversely impacted the ability of the board to get its work done, which is also very important. So we, at the board's request, I prepared a draft ordinance, and we talked about it last month, and there was some comments made, and I went back to the drawing board to reflect that. Essentially, what we talked about at that time was letting anybody at the meeting have up to 3 minutes to speak. They can only speak once. The president would have discretion to allow a little extra time for any individual. After what we suggested would be 30 minutes, the board president could then gauge how many other people wanted to speak, and if there were numerous people who wanted to continue speaking, the president would have the discretion to say, we're going to defer the further citizen comment to the end of the meeting. This would all be published on the website, so we would be aware of it, and it would be a standard. Most of the time, it would never come into play. Like tonight, it wouldn't have come into play. But for those rare occasions when it does come into play, you'll have a policy. So I prepared a draft ordinance, I distributed it to everybody, and I requested if anybody had some changes they wanted to vote on, to let me know, and I would prepare another draft ordinance so it would be available. I didn't get any comments, so we just have the draft I prepared. So I assume either people are in favor of that or they're against it, either way, but we just have one document to vote on.
Is that the electronic?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I don't have a physical.
You got it by email.
The email, is that the
Yes.
email you originally sent? Okay.
Yes. Now, there was some formatting error in there, which I corrected. There was no substantive changes.
And are we looking for action or discussion today on this?
Definitely action, but discussion as well as needed. So, I think.
Because I just have one point of order then. If it's going to be action, I just want to know and make sure legally that we're okay acting on that without first giving the community a chance to read it. I didn't see it in the electronic packet.
Well, couldn't we,
I didn't have it.
after we take the
So,
action, couldn't we put it
well,
on
I'm
the
not done
website?
yet. So my point is, I like the discussion part, and I would love to discuss it. I'm just wondering if we're better off legally to wait a month for action. Discuss it now, find out what we want, and then actually act on it next month. That was my only point.
So but you're saying that you want the public to be aware of what it is before they come in and...
Oh, sure, to have a chance
Well, I
to
think that if
review
we
it.
take an action, Natalie can put it on the website. These are
But you're not
the
following me.
rules that
I'm sorry, Commissioner. What I'm saying is, I think before we take action, we should have input from the community about what it is. So we should give a chance, just put it out there, even if it's just 48 hours notice, but something out there.
There's nothing wrong with having put this on the website for people to see it and consider it and comment on it. It was brought up last month, and it was on the agenda for this month. It was discussed extensively in the minutes. Legally, it does not have to be distributed to the public beforehand. A motion can be brought here. It doesn't even need to be in writing. It could be an oral motion that could be very lengthy. And if seconded and voted through, it would be binding and it would be in the minutes. So people would know what the ordinance is. Here we have it in writing, so it'll be approved. We'll have a copy in writing, a copy will be attached to the minutes. The ordinance provides that it'll be posted on the website. The rules and regulations will be posted on the website, and they'll be available at the meeting. So I think legally it'd be fine to pass this ordinance as is, if that's what the board decides. And in any event, it would certainly be available next month, and if somebody had some objection, and used their 3 minutes to comment on that, the board could consider whether a revision would be necessary or not.
Was there a hard copy, a written copy in our minutes, in our packet?
I don't think so.
It was emailed by me to you after the last one.
I have
I see a hard copy, so I haven't read it.
Okay.
So I move to table the discussion of the ordinance until the next meeting.
Table the discussion?
Table the line item.
The action?
Yes. And in that meantime, publish the draft ordinance.
And give a written copy to each of the commissioners.
You may also want to consider whether to just table the permanent enactment of the ordinance to the next meeting, but adopt it on a trial run for the next meeting only, so that you get through the meeting, there won't be any issues if for some reason.
I do appreciate, you answered my legal question, so I understand now, it's legally, we're okay to go ahead with action tonight if we want to. I don't want to, not because of the legality part. I would rather have a month of, especially another commissioner hasn't read it yet, a chance for all of us to look at it and the community, if we could post it. Here's a draft. This is what we're thinking. I don't mind though tonight, Matt, actually talking about it a little bit if you wanted to before next month. It's just as the action piece, I would feel more comfortable next month.
I would, if I want to make a separate motion, Matt made a motion to table the line item. If I want to make a separate motion, can I do that now, or do I need to solicit a second first, or?
I never got a second.
Well, I mean,
there's a motion pending.
There's a motion pending, you can ask for second, and then that should be voted.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, so we have a second to table discussion of the ordinance. All in favor? Okay, so we will discuss that.
And again, for the community that's listening, so they know, that's a vote of 3-2, is that right? I don't know what the vote is.
Yes, that was a vote of 3-2.
3-2, okay.
So Commissioner Gaines, you have the final ordinance there. Maybe you should give that to Natalie. Actually, maybe I should just email it to Natalie so that she can put it on the website for the next board meeting.
Yeah.
Does it say draft, or do I need to add that? Doesn't matter.
It may say draft when I get back to my office.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, do we want to say draft, or do we want to say proposed ordinance, or, you know, and how are we actually sharing it with the public? Just posting it?
You tell me how you want it to be.
If you put draft, it's going to open a whole...
Yeah, I mean, you asked commissioners if they had any changes, you didn't hear from anybody.
Right.
I think that means that people are okay with it
Oh, not at
or
all.
didn't read it, and
No,
so.
I'm sorry. Point of order.
I would say proposed ordinance is what
Point
should
of
be.
order, don't speak for me. No, there's a lot that I have to discuss about it, and I don't agree with. So I'm not there, Commissioner.
Sure.
I just want
Did you
to
see
clear-
Charlie's email about the ordinance?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, well, we have resolved that we're going to table that, and then we're going to put it on the website, and,
I'll just label it discussion for now.
Yep.
okay.
But clearly, in the end, the board is the one that votes on
The board, if somebody makes a motion to approve the ordinance and it's seconded, the board will vote on it.
it. Vote on it.
Mhm. And it did sound like we had some consensus last month, given that, of course, one board member was not in attendance. Okay, so we're moving to new business then. Discuss commissioner decorum during citizen comments. Dan?
Just want to point out that the decorum question that I want to bring up on last month's meeting during public comments could fit into a board governance committee, actually. So I don't want to necessarily spend a lot of time on last month's, except to say that I was disappointed in how one of our community members was treated during public comment. And I think that we can do better, although we don't have, that I know of, a guideline for us to do that. And I would hope that we could develop that somehow, whether it's in governance committee or some other kind of committee, on how we could better listen and respond during public comments as commissioners. I already personally reached out to that citizen and apologized as a commissioner, and I would hope that anybody else who felt comfortable doing that could do the same. But the actual definition or the tweaking or the identification of protocol for commissioner decorum during public comments, I think would fit better in a committee someday if we form one, like a governance committee. So,
I'd like to say something. I think that it's an interesting thing that you were not here at the last meeting, and that you commented on social media and all other places about it at a meeting which you were not at. I also feel that that's part of commissioner decorum. I would like to bring up that I think in terms of the social media stuff, that commissioners should not be back and forth about board or Ridgeville business on their personal account. I think it's inappropriate, I think it's unethical, and I think we need to talk about it. The proposal that Charlie gave us, it's too bad that you didn't read, because he asked for comments back, which he didn't get from you, I guess. But I just think we need to look at the decorum in general of a commissioner. And also in Charlie's thing, I don't know if you saw it, it said that no one should be attacking anyone. The citizens should not be attacking the board. No one should be attacking. And that's what I have to say.
Any other comments from anybody?
I just have to say, it's not my proposal.
I meant what you.
I only reacted to what I heard, and I thought there was consensus.
The email
And I
that you
prepared that
sent.
document. I don't have a say in it. I'm just
Right.
trying to do what I think you want me to do.
Thank you for clarifying that,
Yeah.
and it was my understanding that the consensus was well represented in the ordinance that you drafted for us.
So
But we'll talk about that.
Charlie's email.
and also, I'd like to clarify, since Commissioner Braun did mention me a couple of times. Yeah, I read the ordinance draft carefully, and I was waiting for tonight's discussion. Next month is okay with me. So, just for the record, I did read it.
I think we're moving on to the next point of new business, Board Governance Committee. Is Is that separate from what you've just already
Well, there's
discussed?
overlap. It's not about the specifics of last month, but in general, what I'm proposing is this. First of all, I very much affirm Commissioner Gaines, your idea of developing committees. I think it's a great way to work between meetings and get some of the details done and flush stuff out, do research, get other community members involved. I think it's a real healthy process. So thank you for that. And this is simply an idea that I feel strong about, that we could use a committee to work monthly or every other month between our board meetings on the board governance. What is best practices? It could be part of that could be Robert's rules. Part of that could be the decorum we were just talking about. Part of it could be the social media. There's a lot you could fit under that board governance best practices. And I would like to have the opportunity, if the board felt like there's a need for this kind of a committee, to be on that committee with at least one other commissioner and a couple other community members that we affirm and report on a regular basis back to the larger board.
Okay. Any other comments on that so far?
Process-wise, how do we form committees? Do we need a motion to do that? And if there's a second, then we vote on it? How does that work?
I was still waiting on some total clarity about any rules or laws that govern what we can do with committees. I don't know if there's a protocol or if we can kind of make it up, or, I mean, do you know on the spot if that's?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't look into that.
Okay.
I meant to, I did write it down tonight that I wanted to get to that, I went on vacation instead.
That's all right. If we could get some clarity on any rules, or just so that we know we're in accordance with and in compliance with what we have to be. But we certainly did form one committee already.
And how did you do that? Was that a motion?
Yes.
I believe
I did my motion.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to entertain a motion, or I move, I should say, that we form a board governance committee with Ridgeville Park District. I'm looking for a second.
Second.
All in favor?
No.
No,
No, because I don't fully understand exactly what's being proposed. And I think if we're going to have committees, it's best if we are very clear on exactly what it is. So, given that the motion didn't pass, I would love to hear from you more next meeting and see if we can get some more details about what you hope to see that committee accomplish.
So clarity for our listeners also is that this vote was turned down, a vote of 3 against, 2 for. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on to call of the commissioners. Does anybody feel a move to go first? Did we establish we're doing that in alphabetical order, or does anyone have any?
just sort of from
Yeah,
down to-
whoever wants to go first then in the call of commissioners? Or I can go down the line. Matt, let's start with you. Anything you want to say?
Thanks. My family's been really enjoying Ridgeville. Thank you to Brian and Natalie. We are currently involved in, since the last meeting, LEGO Camp. 2 boys in soccer, 1 boy in t-ball, whole family and extended family out for the 4th of July races. We were at the concert last night and really enjoying everything Ridgeville has to offer. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
No comments?
Okay,
No comment.
no comment. I do not have any comments at the moment either. Commissioner Coyne?
Sure. A pillar in our community passed away, and his funeral is this Saturday, Dr. Alan Howe, who, if you don't know, has been involved in dozens of different social and humanity-type services and programs from really cradle to grave. He was one of those few geniuses that I've come across where he puts his brains and his ideas to work in action. And our community here in Evanston is better because of it. And much of what Alan Howe has done to help our constituents will continue in those programs that he helped start. They all have their own boards, they have their own businesses, they all have all their own money generational type programs. But I just wanted our group to know that he had passed, and that his family is being well cared for, and that his memorial service is this Saturday, 1 o'clock at Riva Place Church.
Thanks for letting us know. Okay, so we currently have another section of citizen comments. The structure is currently still that we have citizen comments at the beginning and at the end of the meeting. So would any citizens present like to make any comments? No? Okay, at this point then, we're moving into executive session.
We have to close this.
Oh, do we? Okay. Well, so the motion is to go into executive session or to adjourn? Which one do we do for,
We don't adjourn till after
Yeah.
the executive session.
I make a motion to go into executive.
Go into executive, come out of executive with motion,
all in favor? Aye.
then you adjourn. Hey, Rob.
I don't know.
I said this in the real.
Yeah, well, the answer to that is no. Oh, did I have to take last month? Thank you. My mother-in-law buys me the best jewelry. She said there's something, they were at one of those retirement homes, I don't know, 3 crowns or what. Oh, yeah, there's like a store.
Yeah, we have